All right, and I think we should be already live. Let me check if audio is working. Let me see. And yes, we are live, so hello everyone. In today's I have a really special guest, and for today will be all about Zero Trust, VPN, WireGuard, and Mistborn. So as you already know, I created already tutorial how you can install Mistborn, how you can use it, and those kind of things. And today the guest will be Steven Foerster, the creator of Mistborn platform. So if you join the stream, hit the like button so everyone knows. Keep the algorithm fed so many others can also find the stream. So I think time is to introduce you to the Steven. So just wait until he joined. And yeah, hello Steven.
Hi Simon.
So thank you very much for your time and that you join this Webnestify stream where we will be talking about your project, Mistborn.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you are welcome. So to begin with, first, can you introduce yourself, your project, your company, and those kind of nice things?
Sure. My name is Steve Foerster. So my background is I'm an electrical engineer, and then I later got a degree in computer science. My professional background is I was a digital signal processing engineer working on sonar systems, and then kind of made the jump over, became a Linux evangelist. I just building up all the things I could do with Linux. Built a Beowulf, figured out a commodity hardware in the living room back when I was single. And my wife was it became more over handling the software side. So built computer network automation tools, and I started well, brother on in real information started building fire cars, tools, and then for my family, I was building up these servers so that we could all connect to each other. My wife is, and my wife also was a very happy user of free and open Wi-Fi. Like, all right, so we have VPN all the time. And
sorry, can I interrupt you for a second? There is in the chat people are complaining of there is echo. Is the echo from my side or from Steven's side?
Well, you could try muting your side while I'm talking, and I'll try muting my side when you're talking.
Okay, let me mute myself.
We'll see how that goes. All right. Is it better now? It's sounding better to me. All right. So I'll talk a little bit here so you can tell me if it's working now. So I started building the foundation of Mistborn back in 2017, and it was originally a family project, something that my extended family was all using together. So it started off as WireGuard, and then people wanted a nice, easy, visual way to manage it. So I made the original interface for them, and then I was also building a lot of Docker containerization tools at the time, and it's like, well, I know how to make all of these containers for Nextcloud and Home Assistant and everything. So I'm going to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there. And so they're all in there as extra services. So if you have a really beefy server, you can run all these services. Most of the time, you're just running one or two, just exactly what you need for what your current setup is. And I also added the Security Operations Center later on with Wazoo, and several other features just along the way, like Copper Cloud, which is a way of blacklisting individual IP addresses. So the original idea was there that Pi-hole is going to block everything from the domain address side, and so you can get freely. There are lots of lists of domain addresses you can block for ads or just things you don't want to have on your family network. And then Copper Cloud was an add-on to that. Individual IP addresses like the Windows telemetry IP addresses you just want to block network wide, you could do it from there. Several other things that'll probably come up as we go along. Client-to-client communication. So your home router just lets your TV talk to your refrigerator, and I've also got a bit of a red teaming background, and so that lateral movement is a no-go for me. So I shut down client-to-client communication. You can only talk to the internet. You can only talk to the server when you're connected to Mistborn. Anyway, so it's a bit of the history of Mistborn. I'm sure more will come up as we go along. But I'm also curious to learn how everybody else is using Mistborn and features that would be particularly useful to people as we go along. Also, I'm looking forward to further exploring this partnership with Simon and WebNestify, and exploring more the support side, and how other companies such as WebNestify could be the day-to-day operations kind of support, or offering support for Mistborn, while Stormblessed focuses on software support and things like that. So a bit of a preview of future possibilities as we go.
Yeah, I see. And thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm really happy that I keep focusing on developing Mistborn, as is really, it's a game changer, right? You can integrate Wazoo, you can set up Bitwarden on the VPN network, and all of those apps that you added, which is great. And also, I'm happy for the partnership where we can support each other, which is always great to see when the open source project is going somewhere, some direction. So I think we already answered our first question that we have. So maybe we could go and ask you if you can give us some overview of the core features of Mistborn and how they enhance security for self-hosted services.
Sure, and a lot of these just built on each other over time. It's like I built one thing, like, well, now that this one thing exists, it's a natural jump off point for this other feature. And so it started off as WireGuard, connecting to everything, and then as I was adding other services to it, like, well, the server already knows who you are since you're connecting via WireGuard. There is no need for some other username, password, anything like no. Yeah. So now I just added the bit of code in Django to identify based on the incoming connection who this is, and so now it's all passwordless and zero trust. And so the latest versions of Mistborn are adding the OpenID Connect features, so that Mistborn already knows who you are, and now it can tell other applications, and we can do that by integrating the OpenID Connect. And in the future, we can do SAML if we have to, but that beginning of that functionality is already there. And so users, and now we also have groups in the interface itself, so you can create groups and you can add people to groups. And the real feature there, or the real benefit there, is that if you integrate single sign-on with Mistborn in the future, it will then pull both your who you are, your identity, your username, and user information, as well as your group memberships, and the extra services and other things in the future can assign local permissions based on your group memberships that Mistborn provides. Um, let's see. The part of the other core functionality at the beginning was Pi-hole, which Pi comes from Raspberry Pi. It's a project that was originally designed to be a single DNS provider for an entire network, but would blacklist ads and malware and other things that you did not want getting into your local network. You can also custom add domains and add a really nice interface. So I added that. So Pi-hole is the DNS provider for all of the users, the WireGuard clients in the network, as well as for all of the extra services. And layer on top of that is the upstream DNS that Pi-hole gets is sourced via DNS crypt and Cloudflare. You can customize who your point of trust for upstream DNS is, but by default it's Cloudflare. Let's see. Am I missing anything? That's the core functionality. IDS, they're fail to ban from the beginning, which is pretty transparent or unseen by the user. And if you're using the SOC services and you enable Wazoo, then Suricata is baked in as part of that, which is just it's a machine gun for fail to bans, 9mm.
Yeah, indeed. And so in the future, are you planning to also integrate IDP provider like Authentic and those kind of things in the future?
It's a possibility. I do use Authentic for some other things. There's an awful lot of overlap, and also there's the dueling development kind of approaches between the two. So a lot of open source projects enjoy just being everything to everybody and just letting everybody tinker and mold exactly to what they want. And then other people who just don't want to even know what's going on behind the scenes. They just want a simple button they click on and things work in some default configuration. So it's kind of, the Apple, there's one button, there's one way of doing things versus the Linux and open source kind of methodology. So right now, Mistborn has kind of the beginning of that same kind of functionality that Authentic does provide, but it's only OpenID Connect. Whereas most everything is migrating to that. Some older things are still SAML only, but even in some software integration, Authentic has also just some great documentation, just phenomenal. And for some projects, like I think Apache Guacamole used to be SAML only. It was their only IDP provider they would integrate with, but they've since opened up to OpenID Connect, and so now Authentic has both ways of integrating those two. But really, OpenID Connect is easier. I think it's the future. It's things that were built in the last 15 years or 10 years. But the short answer is we'll see.
Yeah. And also we have a question from Jay. Hello, Jay. And he also will recommend switching out fail to ban to CrowdSec. Do you know CrowdSec?
I've heard of it. It's a little newer. I hear what you're saying there, and I agree. It should definitely be something that's considered. It's another thing that's trade-off because to this point, Mistborn is really your own bunker, your own enclave, your own safe space for your family or your company or however you're using it, and as such, your DNS and everything, it's all self-contained. There are no external logs. Even the internet service provider upstream can't see your DNS if everything's working correctly, and so on. But you start integrating things with CrowdSec, and now you're bringing back in. All right, now we're sharing some of our what might have been considered private information with some kind of external service that you don't directly control. So there is some utility to it. It's a trade-off, but yes, CrowdSec is something that's been on our radar.
Yeah, I also using CrowdSec for my web servers, and it's really great service. And as you mentioned, it will be trade-off because Mistborn is zero trust, and if you introduce CrowdSec, who can gather all the IP and all the action and push them, I don't think there's zero trust anymore. But also, since Mistborn is in Docker, you can also try it and do it manually because CrowdSec also support Docker environments. So I think skilled people can be able to achieve the integration with Mistborn. All right. Another question is, how user-friendly is Mistborn for someone who might not have deep technical background? What steps have you taken to make it more accessible to everyone?
That was a great question. And it's something that I'm constantly trying to make better. At this point, well, and I'll show later during a demo portion. But at this point, all you really need to do is have a Linux Debian 12 base system. So you can either set that up as a virtual machine at home, or you can go to Azure, AWS, DigitalOcean, any cloud provider, infrastructure as a service provider will have a Debian 12 image. Give it however much resources you need. That's something that can change over time. Like you can start with a minimal set, 1 gig of RAM, and even one vCPU should be fine for the default installation with nothing, no extra services running. And once you have that and you have command prompt, then you need to pull down the repository. So git clone, and then you run one script, and that one script will guide you through anything it needs, like a default master password for any services that need it behind the scenes. Those aren't user passwords; those are passwords for the extra services. And that should be it. And then after a few minutes, it will be done. It will. You can in the documentation, it walks you through these steps, and at the end, you can check the logs in your Debian 12, and you can see once it settles down, or at any point really, you go to the URL home.mistborn if you're running it locally. Otherwise, there's a command to get the default WireGuard configuration, and then you copy and paste that locally, and then you run that through your local WireGuard client, and then you can access the web interface. And so like that part is that's the most technically savvy part, the part for which you need technical savvy, just that getting off the ground. Once you have that, once you can access the web UI, then most of your interaction should be through the web UI. From there, you can add and manage users. Whenever you add a user, a WireGuard profile is automatically generated for them, and then you can give that to them. They can scan the QR code in their device, however you want. But that beginning part, just getting a Debian 12 instance, running the installation script, and then getting your administrator WireGuard profile. That requires the most technical know-how.
Okay, thank you very much. So you are not officially supporting Ubuntu, right?
That is correct. So, yeah, 4 years ago, back when Mistborn was first released, we supported Ubuntu 20.04. We supported Debian 11. We supported Raspbian, and we also supported 32-bit, so ARM v7, as well as 64-bit ARM and 64-bit Intel or AMD. So that was a lot to support for something that wasn't costing money, and I didn't have the resources to put into testing infrastructure. So yes, that was whittled down to it's only Debian 12 officially supported right now. Though the stubs in there that do support or that did formerly support Ubuntu and Raspbian have not been taken out. So it's your mileage may vary type of situation. And of course, if anybody has a pull request or makes an update for Ubuntu 24.04, somebody that just wants to push it in, I'll be happy to merge it in. For most cases, there was somebody back in 2020 who was trying to add support for Arch Linux. It's like, well, I love Arch Linux. I use Arch Linux on several of my development machines. Mistborn is not made for Arch Linux, so I did not merge that in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I cannot also imagine running some software production ready on Arch with a rolling release every day. That would be a challenge for everyone. All right. We can have another question from the community, and it is about security. What specific security challenges does Mistborn address, and how does it compare to other home network protection solutions?
Great question. So it's really made to be a self-contained space for. Originally, it's for my family. Since used it for some small businesses, and it's made to give the administrators just as much control and insight into an internet connected space as is possible. So I have young kids now, and I'm already thinking of ways I can make this into a broader ecosystem with device control, with mobile device management in the future. But it's right now it's made to be the simplest way to just get up and running for a solution for if you just need a VPN client, then it's got that. If you just need one single space where you want a simple self-hosted cloud, Nextcloud, we've got that. If you want a self-hosted password manager, 2024, everybody who uses the internet for anything should be using a password manager. Even our 80-year-old grandparents, they should be using a password manager now. So if you don't want a cloud-hosted one or a third-party hosted one, you want to self-host it, Mistborn has that. If you want a home assistant, we've got that. Jellyfin media server, we've got that. Apache Guacamole as a place where everybody can log in, use that one instance of Apache Guacamole to then jump into a predefined set of other resources via SSH, Remote Desktop Protocol, or VNC. It's got that. So that's what it has going for right now. It's the one-stop shop. It's easy to get out of the box any of these features. Usually people aren't using multiple of them. They're not using like all of them at once. It's like, all right, I need a Mistborn instance. It's going to be cloud for simple docx, XLSX documents that we can share. But you don't want to set up a Nextcloud that's just open to the world. And you're going to be constantly getting traffic from Singapore and Morocco, just like, oh, why is somebody trying to log into my Nextcloud? It gives you that defense in depth, so that anybody who accesses it has to be logged into WireGuard first, and beyond that, it's the one stop. So you install Mistborn. You're connected via WireGuard, and you want to start up Nextcloud. That is one click on the interface, and it's all Dockerized on the back end, and there it is. Or Jellyfin or Home Assistant, whatever it is. So it's really the best of both worlds versus in terms of like a security appliance. I'm thinking like OpenSense, which I've also used, which is a very powerful open source router distribution. It's based on FreeBSD. It's similar to pfSense, but it's made to just be a security appliance. And you have to be kind of technically savvy to set it up. You have to know some network engineering, set up your subnets and all of that. So this is the Mistborn from the beginning was made to be, we're doing a default configuration, doesn't really need to be changed. It's right out of the box, it'll just work for 99% of cases. And then it's got all the extras like the security distributions, OpenSense and Security Onion, another great one. But things like Nextcloud and Jellyfin, Home Assistant, there's none of that. That's completely separate. So it's got those best of both worlds in terms of great security, one-stop shop, works 99% of the time. You don't have to know anything about networking to get it working. But everybody has to be wire guarded in order to access the internals, any services that are running inside. So,
Yep. And I also see how it can be used, for example, for company intranets. They can create Mistborn server, deploy Bitwarden, and everyone can access this only on the intranet, which is really great in terms of security and those kind of things. And also, you make it easy for everyone to get basically started with self-hosting, because not everyone know what is self-hosting, but if they want to step up their game with security and start using those open source projects, I think this is really great solution. It is secure by default, and also one-click deployment.
exactly. So to add on to that, yeah, a lot of these other services like Nextcloud, Home Assistant, and so on, they do all offer Dockerized and containers, and they do have a quick start documentation. If you want to get this running, just pull down this Docker Compose file, run Docker Compose upd, and you're up and running. And that's true, but you're also either only running locally where you can only access it on your local network, or you have to put it up on a cloud provider, and it's everybody can see your port 80 or port 443, and you're trusting the internal security authentication lockouts or whatever of the product itself, and that's it. Like that is your only layer of defense. So yes, this is the defense in depth. The Mistborn's your outer layer, and then with the WireGuard authentication, and then once you're inside, it's just one click and you're up.
All right, thank you very much. So, can you share what are some future features or improvements that you are planning to add to Mistborn?
Yes. So right now, I'm trying to make a background a dashboard and API service hosted by Stormblast that could be used, for individuals or particularly for MSPs, for managed service providers, to manage Mistborn instances. And so this would build up the support capability for Mistborn in the background. To this point, it's been you need a local Mistborn administrator. You need somebody who knows something if something goes wrong, or you need to restart a service. You need somebody to get on the terminal on your local Linux instance and do that. Like, well, that's a bit much for many people who are self-hosting, And so to create that capability for remote, secure, remote support, we're adding that now. So in the future, you're getting some error message, or you just want to reach out to some Mistborn expert to get into your local system on the terminal and see what the status is, and fix it manually, or run some maintenance or something manually from there. There will be additional tools for doing that. It's one of the things we're working with WebNestify to build up. Other things. So I've gotten some notes from people that TLS certificates are still an issue, and as browsers are doing a pretty good job of being more security oriented and certainly security aware, and helping the end user be aware of their security posture, I should say. And so browsers are being less friendly towards HTTP services, port 80. So the unencrypted, unprotected, just straight HTTP. And there's a good reason for that. Like, most of the time you don't want to be using it. Mistborn, though, like any service that you're running internally, it's already over WireGuard. And once it's over WireGuard, you're running it on a local network to the virtualized Docker networks, the overlay and bridge networks. So I mean, you don't need, from a security standpoint, you don't need HTTPS at that level. But browsers sometimes enforce it. Your phone, or the apps running on your phone, if you got Nextcloud or Home Assistant, or the individual apps running on your phone, and you want to connect via WireGuard to Mistborn and then use those apps on your phone. Sometimes the apps don't let you do everything you want to do if there aren't TLS certificates there. So there is Let's Encrypt TLS certificate capability coming. And the thing there is you need a unique domain for your Mistborn instance. So that would be a subscription service to get that unique domain, and to then get all of those certificates signed and that are valid and unique for your Mistborn instance. There's also, I've talked a little bit, this is down the road, but adding mobile device management, things like a Fleet DM, so that you can both connect device like your phone or your tablet via WireGuard, and then once it's connected, Mistborn can do some more active management and security auditing of all of the endpoints that are connected to it. Along those lines, Wazoo is added, and you can add the Wazoo agent to any of your Mistborn clients, and it will feed data back to your Wazoo dashboard, so you can see your security events and do some threat management and vulnerability assessments from the dashboard. And that capability will be built up hopefully in concert with the mobile device management. That's later on down the road.
All right, and we have a question. Let me pull up the chat. And we have a question from Arch Web Solution. I'm new to the security side of apps. Is this a more flexible version of Next DNS?
I was unfamiliar with NextDNS, so I just am looking them up now. So yeah, it looks like this is entirely a third-party hosted thing. But besides that, it's also I'm not sure if this is just a DNS solution. It's not a full like private cloud. So this looks like just DNS. The pricing is just for queries. So
Yes, it is like a DNS.
okay. So yes, it's many more services and in a wrapped, confined private cloud type of environments that you can self-host either locally in a virtual machine or on a cloud on an infrastructure as a service like Azure or AWS or GCP or DigitalOcean.
Yeah, and NextDNS is similar to Pi-hole, as NextDNS is like a SaaS solution,
Okay.
where you just purchase it, the premium, you change the DNS, and you can do all kind of things, like in the Pi-hole. All
Yep.
right, thank you, Marsh, for your question, and let us continue with our community questions that we still have. And so, how has the community responded to Mistborn so far, and what kind of support can users expect if they encounter any issues?
Great questions. So I originally released Mistborn, like I said, way back when in 2019. It was a family project, and then world events happened at the beginning of 2020, as I'm sure we all remember. If you look into my the public Mistborn repository, you'll see I think it was released on March 6th of 2020. And the thought was, I've got this cool thing that I've been using for my family, and I had been using it internally on some other projects that I had been a member of at that point. And it's like, well, right now the world needs some remote work solutions, some ways to do that, and especially companies that don't have full-fledged IT departments or a really good understanding on how to do this. M365, G Suite were really in their infancy back in 2020, and weren't really thinking of teams that were working remote full time. You just remember what the state of Microsoft Teams was back in early 2020. Man, it was not anybody's first choice of collaboration tool. And so, and Mistborn at that point already had Jitsi for web conferencing. It had Nextcloud. It had Bitwarden or Vault Warden, and most of the other extra services that are there. It's like, well, it's here. I'll just kind of provide it as is and go from there. But it did kind of take off, and it was written about in Linux Pro magazine or Linux magazine, depending on whether you're in Europe or in the United States. And several others were writing articles because they were finding some utility to it, which was fantastic. It was getting stars on GitLab. People were identifying issues and publishing those to GitLab, which is very helpful. Great. I didn't have a whole lot of spare time and I didn't have any. I don't have any testing infrastructure. I started a Patreon back then to start to get something so that I could put towards a testing infrastructure. But it kind of it took off too much in some ways, and then not enough in other. Like it was, people were using it for their own companies and whatnot, which was fine. It's just then they were wanting support from me, and it's like, well, I can't sustain this. I don't have the time or the bandwidth right now. I eventually took down the Patreon, and Mistborn was again just kind of as is for 2022, and then in 2023 I added up bring it up to date on several things, and then now I'm trying to do this in a more sustainable way. It's like, all right, I need it to be kept up to date, but I also like not everybody needs everything, and so make it so that it'll work out of the box for free in this community edition. That's perfectly usable for a lot of people. It's like, that's great. But for those people who do need extra functional updates for the extra services as they roll out. Well, those need to be tested in concert with Mistborn and so on. And so that'll be a subscription service, as well as just the option for general support for just ongoing maintenance, whatever is happening. I need somebody to back up these Docker containers, and I need to move this over to another Debian 12 instance, or whatever it is. Like, all right, well, we'll use some partners like Webnestify to help do that day-to-day kind of IT support. So those are the things that we're working through right now. So the support options should be growing in the next several months. So people who just want the free community edition of Mistborn, just download it once and I'm up and running. I've got a version of Nextcloud that I know that works. It might be a little older. That's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Then that community edition will still continue to exist. And we'll also have options for people, especially businesses, who need something that has the functional updates as well as support and whatever else they need.
Yeah, because we already know running open source project is really hard at the beginning because everyone thinks, okay, it's free, I don't need to pay anything, but I can request support, I can request features, and this is what many open source projects are killed because people don't understand the concept free and open source, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, this needs to change. Fundamentally, this needs to change because there are many great projects that just died. The developer got angry, depressed, frustrated. Somebody requested a function for iOS, somebody for Android. And he's just doing in his free time. He's not getting paid. He got probably full-time job, and this is his hobby. People can't just request features or support, right? If this project does not have any means how it can be monetized, like what you are doing right now, where you're gonna have enterprise channel, and you probably also want to set up a SaaS platform, right, where people can just sign up and they can have their own instances, right?
Exactly. Yep. Those are in the pipeline.
So, yeah, I think this is the main issue with open source software, where people thinks they can do anything, they can request anything. And this will kill many, many great projects. So I can't wait what future brings for the Mistborn and also the Webnestify partnerships where we can have some many services. I can offer support while I can support the Mistborn, which I think this is the future, how Mistborn can grow.
Absolutely. It's a good fit.
All right, then. So I think anyone in the chat or watching does any questions before we start with the presentation and demo? Yeah, we have some from Jay. And let me see the chat. And then that he also know the feeling running open source tools myself.
It's very exciting at the beginning. It's like you wrote this thing for yourself. You thought it was useful. Like there wasn't anything else that was really doing it. It's like, all right, I'll just make it, give it a few days or whatever, and then it's like, well, maybe some other people will think this is useful. So you open it up, and then it's very exciting. Like, hey, lots of people are using it. But then people start like, oh yeah, well, can you custom tailor it like this for me? It's like, no, I can't do that. Yeah.
I don't run any open source. I'm not a developer. I'm just providing managed cloud services for digital agencies and businesses around the world. So I don't know how is the feeling running open source, but I feel you, Jay. All right. So if there aren't any questions, I think we can proceed with the Mistborn demo. If you can share your screen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is a locally
Hold on,
running.
I cannot see the screen.
Okay. Can
Okay.
you see it now? Oh, okay. There it is.
Yes. Let's see.
Okay. So this is a locally running instance of Mistborn, and quickly go over some features, and then I can show you how I would get it up, or how I do get it up and running on a cloud instance. I've got a mix of uses. I've got one version of Mistborn that I've kept here at home, and just keeps running, and it's been running since 2019, I think, and just keep it updated, and it's just never failed me at all. Never had any problems. Always been up. It is a rock. So this is a Debian 12 instance that I have on my local computer. This is the one that I use to test Mistborn locally as it's being built, and this is running as a server right now. I also use this as a client for cloud versions of Mistborn to test there, and I use this as a WireGuard client, and the interface is exactly the same. So I also stand up versions of Mistborn that only exist for a few weeks to a month for a very targeted use case, and then just tear it down. So that's the other nice thing is, if I just need a cloud environment for a specific group for a month, I can do that and then tear it down. Very easy to bring up and then very easy to tear down. So this is the status page. So this is showing all active or existing WireGuard clients and whether they're connected or not. Here you can see at the top there are 7 users. So these are the users. They each have their own table down here. There's admin, Ben, Stephen, Rebecca, Alex, Noah, Dwayne, and this is all just a demo. I was also very appreciative back in the day when I would share or do screen shares or screen grabs of Mistborn, and you can see the QR codes on the WireGuard page, and people, from a security standpoint, people can get the QR codes and they can connect. Like, oh, this is all demo. This will be torn down immediately after, and this is on my local net. So even if you got the QR codes right now, you wouldn't be able to connect to it. So 7 users, and then all default WireGuard profiles created automatically when you create a new user, and then you can add other users to that, and they can either be WireGuard only. So this means that you connect to WireGuard, and then that's all the authentication you need. It knows who you are based on that. So if I were to connect with this WireGuard profile, then I would open this up and it would say, welcome Stephen right here. It would know who I am, and it could pass that information on to any single sign-on clients. We can go back over to the WireGuard page. So this is really the user management, and yes, these are all demo QR codes and profiles. So please don't worry about that. Here you can create a new user, and a super user would be a super user for Mistborn. So it would grant that person access to this management screen. So that's what super user status in here means. And then create a user, very easy. And then here you can see that they have a default profile. Here you can add however many you want for however many devices, and you can make it WireGuard only or multi-factor authentication. Here I've already created several. One of the changes in Mistborn recently was that I used to do a completely separate WireGuard server and client pair for every client, for every endpoint. And so the downside to that was that it was a different port. You needed to connect on a different port for each individual client. And so there wasn't just one port. You could, if you were doing port forwarding on your local router to connect to Mistborn, it wasn't just one port to get over. It was one for every client you wanted to connect. So that has since changed. Now, when you create new clients in here, they will all be on the same port here. So by port, I mean this port. So this is connecting to this IP address on this this port, and this is connecting on the same port. And so you only need to port forward once, and it will cover all of your devices from now on. The extra services in here. When you first start up Mistborn, nothing is on, so it is minimal resources, and they all look like this. They've got a green start button, but these were all started just so I wouldn't have to wait to show you. You can see that each of these extra services are up and running in Mistborn, and you can jump into which. All right, Rocket Chat's having an issue. Vault Warden, whichever. So they're all just one click, hit the button, and then you open it, and they're there. I do have the security center. So this is the Security Operations Center of Mistborn. So this is very, very resource intensive, as you would expect. And so you're not going to just run this on a 1 gigabyte of RAM instance of Mistborn somewhere. This is a 16 gigabyte instance of Debian with 8 vCPUs right now. And so in the background, Wazoo is using Elasticsearch. And so when you start Wazoo, it'll start Elasticsearch in the background. And if you stop Elasticsearch, it'll also stop Wazoo. We'll just open this up, and you can see the login dashboard. And this should be the default master password when I first created this instance of Mistborn, and it is. So this is the sim. You can run this in Mistborn if you want, if you need to. This is an older version of Wazoo at this point. If you've been keeping up to date, you can see some of the differences, but still fully functional. And you can see one agent is connected so far, and it is Mistborn itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was created earlier today, and you can see security events. So pretty cool. Anything else, Simon, or anybody else you'd like to see in here?
I think if we can cover also the two-factor authentication and how we could create those profile with authentication.
All right. So I'd like to I'll show that the full getting that set up and connected. Let me. I'll create an instance on DigitalOcean. I'll create a new server there while talking about it. So Debian 12 and use all my SSH keys. Sorry. I'm gonna get this kicked off here real quick.
No problem. It's quick to install. One liner, 3 minutes, and it's done.
Yep. All right, and
also we have a question from Kay,
Mhm.
which we will answer after the demonstration.
Okay. So here I will SSH into this new, so it's still building. This is on DigitalOcean.
It take a couple minutes.
Yeah. So
before you install the Mistborn platform, do you need to do some basic security things about the server, HURL local users, SSH keys, and this kind of things?
No, there's nothing that you need to do. You just need to be able to SSH access it, and your user needs to have sudo permissions for everything. So at the beginning, so the installation script will take care of everything else. And the very first thing it'll do is it will create its own user. It will create a user called Mistborn on your system. It will give it sudo permission, and then it will do everything as that user. So that's also for auditing purposes. You can check, anything that's done as Mistborn in your system, and also, things like Wazoo can ingest that and look at that. It's like what's done as the Wazoo user. The Wazoo user, or not the Wazoo, the Mistborn user should be a system user, so it should not look like it's being used by an end user, and so that would trigger a check or an alert. So the first thing that you do here is you need to pull updates. Now, if you don't do this, then Mistborn will remind you to do it. So maybe I'll go ahead and I'll show you that. So you need Git, and if Git is not found, then you install it.
Yep.
Very easy from the command line. And then from here, we will clone the repository. Which my fingers have done very, very many times. All right, and then from here, you just run the installer script.
Pretty easy and straightforward.
Try to keep it that way. So here it will check and see it's saying that you have some things to install. So, and it's telling you exactly what to run here. So it's saying sudo apt-get update and apt-get -y dist upgrade. So you can just run it like that. And it's updating the Linux kernel itself, so we'll have to reboot before we install.
Yeah,
which is fine.
So you don't need to install Docker services manually, right?
Nope. So the Mistborn install script will install Docker and manage Docker itself, and then the individual extra services that use Docker will be systemd dependencies on that. You don't need to know any of that. All you need to know is that you just need to run the script, and then from the user interface, just hit start for the services. So here we'll go and we'll reboot this instance, and then the SSH session will close. We'll give it a minute to restart, and then we'll jump back in.
And also, speaking of, does the Mistborn do the server security updates by default automatically, or do you need to log into server and do the maintenance yourself?
Great question. It configures it to do it automatically.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yes, it really is made to be an out-of-the-box thing that you can just stand up and forget about. So security updates to the operating system are applied automatically. Let's see here. All right, now we're back here. So you see the Mistborn folder is there because we Git cloned it before. So now we'll go into it, scripts, install. And so now it should be much happier. And there will be some things that it will prompt you for. And there are also ways to get around the prompts. If you just want a completely non-interactive install, you can pass in these things as command line variables for the command. And so this default admin password, it's important to understand, that's not a password for any user. This is a default password that exists for any extra services or any other third-party things that just need a default password to start working. So it's the password you will use to log into Pi-hole. As we saw earlier, it's the password you'd use to log into Wazoo. And so the idea here is that there's no such thing as a baked-in default password anywhere in Mistborn. So that's a huge attack surface. If Pi-hole were to ship with admin access rights and nobody got around to changing it, then that's something that a red teamer or a malicious user would check first. So there's no default password. It is this password that you set for your instance of Mistborn becomes that default password for any services that need it. And it will also take care of things behind the scenes, like Apache Guacamole needs to salt and hash the password in a particular way and save it in a .sql file before it runs. And so Mistborn will take care of things like that for you, taking the password that you set as your default password, and it will move it and manipulate it and put it in a way that the application that needs the default password can use.
Yeah.
So you see, it's installing everything in the background. It configured your IP tables rules, which is your firewall in Linux, making sure that everything it's dropped by default for input and forward rules. Right here, you see it's generating OpenSSL certificates. There's no default certificates anywhere. A new SSH key is generated for your instance. Default, even your TLS certificates, even though they're not signed, they're available in Mistborn, and the services are served on HTTPS just with an unsigned certificate, but it is unique. It is your certificate. And here you see it just installed Docker, and now it's pulling its first Docker containers and kicked off and running. So now it's telling you that it's starting, and it's down here at the bottom. It's giving you two useful commands.
Can you move the terminal a little bit up because there is the name in the screen? Yeah.
Sure.
Now it's better. Perfect.
Okay. So here you see the two useful commands it's giving you, and these are also in the README on the repository page. So this one will show you the running journal, the running log for the base Mistborn process. So it will tell you when things are building, when it's populating the initial database, when it's creating the initial admin user and creating a new WireGuard profile. Again, there's no default WireGuard profiles. Everything is generated for your instance. Everything is that way. But so if we were to run this command, we would see, and we will run it in a second here. And then when we want to pull our initial WireGuard configuration file, this is where we pull it from. So we will check the log right now. Everything's been running for a little bit, so it should be just fine. Beat is running the regular services. So there are several just housekeeping services and things running in the background. Some things run once, some things run on command. or there's an external event that calls them. Some things just run regularly to check state and make sure that the instance is healthy. And so beat is taking care of that, and celery is taking care of this in the background. So those who are Braden Sanderson fans, you'll recognize some of the nomenclature in the background. Dawn Shard and Atium, which are really keeping everything alive and moving in the guts of Mistborn. So now that is up and kicking, now we can get our administrator config. All right. So there.
I think we should hide this, because nobody scanned this QR code because it is on public VPS.
It is a public VPS, but yeah, it's only going to be up for very shortly, just for this demo. But okay. You saw there's a QR code. I'm going to take down this VPN or local VM, and I'm going to use this local VM as a client now. So you saw it both gave the contents of the WireGuard configuration, also gave the QR code. All right. So here, again, you'll briefly see it here. Let's see. All right. So this is a Linux client, and so this is where the WireGuard profiles go. And this there.
So basically, this config is the main administrative configuration file, right?
Yep, that's what it looks. Oh, all right, all right. I did. Hey, I did. Oh, did the user not? Let me see. Make sure that. So on Open or on Linux. These are the tool packages that you need to run WireGuard. Okay. So the directory didn't exist, so that's what it was getting upset about. This is a clean version of Debian 12. All right. And so now that that's there, you bring it up. This is all you do. All right. And now it is VPN'd into the new Mistborn instance. And so this is the new stuff. All right. From here, you'll see the WebSocket connected, and it's waiting here. So the status page, it's a WebSocket, and it's fed every 30 seconds, I think, after the service starts in the background, which it is. And here you also see that there is a connected profile, which is the one I'm using right now to see it. So you see it's the default profile, and you see that it recognizes me as admin, and see it put me up here as admin. So good user practices here. I'll create a unprivileged user for myself.
Of course.
And then once I'm down here, I'll create profiles for my phone. And we will create a, let's see, desktop MFA. And we'll make that multi-factor authentication. Okay. All right, it's identifying an issue. I'll have to go look into that later. We'll see if it created. Okay, the config is here. We'll see what's going on here.
As I mentioned before, this is a Murphy law. If you want to do something live, everything is working before, and now on the live, something breaks,
Exactly. I'll make this. All right. So now we'll bring down the original admin, and we will now attempt to bring up the MFA. I think that's what I called it. Yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to close this just to make sure that it's not caching anything it ought not. All right, well, this is good. So this is what it should be doing. So for MFA profiles, Firefox will automatically detect and redirect you. It'll say you don't have an actual connection yet. So open the network login page. And here it is. Cool. And so it recognizes who I am. It's saying your username is Steven. You can't modify that. Is the exact same way that it authenticates when it's just WireGuard. It knows who I am. It already knows that here. And so now it's just going to say, in addition, you need to set up two-factor authentication. So we'll go ahead and do that. And normally I would take this out of the screen share to do. This is just a demo, and this profile isn't going to be used for anything. So I will just open up my authenticator.
And this is really great feature because many WireGuard projects like WireGuard Easy don't support two-factor authentication or MFA, which is really great.
Exactly. And this is a very low level. So all of your external networking should be blocked from here. Well, let's see here. Let's try to go to Google. All right. Some other stuff happening here. All right.
Murphy law.
Yeah. All right. So we'll enable two-factor authentication here. And I will scan the QR code. All right. Is that right? Yeah. All right, there it is. And now you see it's signed me in, and now I've got a sign out button. So the thought here usually is that when I hit sign out here, it closes out all of my network access. So I would not be able to access the internet anymore, which for some reason we're not seeing right now. But that's why sign out exists here, but it does not exist when you connect as a WireGuard only. You're always connected. It always knows who you are, and you're always connected. All right. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it for this 2FA. Let me mute you. So there is no echo, and thank you very much for this demonstration. And I think we can put the question up from Kay. And his question is, if one would have two servers on two separate locations, but we want all traffic behind location A to go out via the IP on location B, is that possible with Mistborn?
Okay. If one would have two servers. So, okay. The short answer, gosh, I'm a network engineer. I get deep into the packet filtering in the networks, the Linux kernel, and all. So any networking connection, any networking scenario, the short answer is yes. You can do absolutely anything you want. get into the right mingle tables and so. But here, easily, I want to say depends on what you're calling a server. If one of your servers is functionally a Mistborn client, then yes, like just right out of the box, it treats the Mistborn server as the default gateway, the internet gateway. If you want both of them to be Mistborn services and you want one of the servers to be the output internet location, so that all of your clients from either of your server think that you're coming from this IP address. There is a former solution inside Mistborn that's still there. It's called gateways, where you could create a gateway for a Mistborn instance, and then that was functionally a WireGuard client, but it was a client via WireGuard, and then it would ship all of the internet traffic out to that pipeline. So I would use this as I would put the gateway config on a Raspberry Pi at home or at my parents' home, or some other family member's home, and then I'd use that to connect to their local network for maintenance or whatever things I was doing for them. And then if I connect to Mistborn and tell it to use that gateway for a particular profile, I could connect to Mistborn on this profile, and it would ship me over there. But gateways, it was complex. It took some doing to maintain. So that the thought is it will exist as a functional option in the future, but it will be in Mistborn Enterprise. It won't be in Mistborn Community anymore.
All right. I hope that answer your question, Kay. And yeah, we have the right guy on the show because Kay is also a network engineer. Okay, so are there any more questions from the chat, from the community? Feel free to ask in the chat so I can pull it up on the stream. And last question that I have prepared is for you. As someone deeply involved in cybersecurity, what advice would you give to individuals and small businesses looking to improve their network security?
All right. Well, the first thing is you don't know what you don't know. So if you are trying to start a new business or something, you're going to have some internet presence. You really want to at least consult with somebody on your presence, or even get it set up for you up front or something. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Simon does, I think, bread and butter. And you do need to talk to an expert. I mean, just when you need legal advice, you need to call a lawyer, get that consultation. When you need cyber advice for your particular setup, you really need to talk to an expert. Make sure there's nothing that you're not seeing, because if it's not your domain of expertise, you just don't know what you don't know. But other than that, it's a lot of the basics. Like we talked about earlier, you really need to be using a password manager. Everybody in the world needs to be using a password manager for everything. You need to be using a unique password for every service everywhere, but especially your most important services that really have the keys to the kingdom, your financial accounts, both personal and business. If you're using cloud accounts, your admin accounts to those accounts that then give access to all of your employees and everything. I mean, you need to lock those down. You need to be using multi-factor authentication everywhere. So I don't work for Bitwarden. They don't pay me anything. I love Bitwarden, and I tell everybody everywhere to use Bitwarden. I love them. I subscribe to Bitwarden. I use their enterprise account. I use it for family. I share passwords and credentials with my wife with Bitwarden. I share passwords and credentials and SSH keys and things of that nature with my employees, all of it via Bitwarden. Don't I say that? Don't share credentials. In the modern day and age, you really want everybody to have their own username and credential. Just when somebody you create them their own SSH key, create them their own WireGuard, their own Mistborn profile. Very easy in Mistborn. Everybody needs to be doing things as themselves, and this is for auditability purposes. If you have any kind of compliance standard or framework that you are trying to live up to meet at all, you need to be doing these things. Unique credentials for everybody. Password manager, MFA, and I want to say, think about your, all the things that can go wrong. It's very easy on a day-to-day basis. I got things working, and things are working this week. Things are feeling pretty good. All right, now you need to be thinking about your disaster recovery and your business backups. Like when everything goes wrong, what are you going to do? How can you access? What are the alternative ways you can access the things that are important? Do not overlook that. I've worked with several people who are just, they had the day-to-day working. They, weren't making backups of the right things in the right place. This is something that a cybersecurity professional, somebody like Simon, could really help an individual business know at what level do you need backups. Do you need to back up a whole server? You need a VM snapshot made daily. Do you just need some specific files? You could tar or zip up some specific files on the folder and keep them here. I mean, there's trade-off in terms of cost, and so just getting a handle on exactly what you need for your use case is just absolutely critical.
Yeah, definitely, and I could not agree more. The password manager is must in today's age. Bitwarden is also my preferred choice, and also because Webnestify is MSP, so I provide managed Bitwarden with Webnestify support for organization, etc., etc. And also, what I recommend to do is use passkeys, or even better, you can use YubiKeys or Google Titan, where you can also create SSH public key, which can be authenticated by your YubiKey, which is really, really great.
Lots of great options available now.
And thus, the future Mistborn version will support passkeys as authentication for MFA.
Maybe it's not on the short list. I'll tell you why. Well, not in the immediate future. I'll just leave it at that for right now.
Okay, no problem. All right. So I think that's it for all those questions. Yeah.
Kay is adding here segmentation. Absolutely. This is part of Zero Trust, just separating the things that can be separated. When I was talking earlier about Mistborn and client-to-client communication being blocked by default. I mean, this is why your refrigerator does not need to be talking to your TV, and when you see that your refrigerator is talking to your TV, that's a problem. So yes, you segment your network. You make it sure that only the things that need to talk to each other can talk to each other, and only in the ways that they need to. So this is going up your entire network layer. You're like, all right, the IP addresses are allowed, the ports are allowed, these paths are allowed. I mean, just lock it down as much as you can, and then anything else that tries will either trigger something in Wazoo or in a log that you will find, but will hopefully just be blocked from the outset.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe a last question, and that will be Mistborn versus NetBird.
Okay. All right. I'm aware of NetBird. I actually talked with some of the guys who helped develop it a few years ago. But I actually I haven't used it myself any kind of recently. In my head, I kind of think of it and Tailscale the same way. And there's an open source version of Tailscale called Headscale, which I've done some more work with. What kind of comparison would you like?
Like we know that Mistborn is VPN, WireGuard, etc., and those kind of things. But Mistborn works like that will create own, basically overlay VPN where you can add the device posture checks, you can create exit nodes, you can connect via localhost, you can specify DNS and all other things, right? So how does it compare for the Mistborn versus NetBird?
So, um, Mistborn is, I would say, it's more self-contained, and uh, it works very, very well in a very limited number of ways. And I said these are the major use cases ways. So you can, and there are two types of WireGuard profiles you can create right now. So that is the regular WireGuard, you're connected and you're fine, and then the MFA profile. With the gateway options, which will be re-enabled in the enterprise version, you can also connect as a gateway. And so a gateway being the upstream um, public IP source for a particular or particular VPN or particular profiles in Mistborn. Um, so it works very well in those very limited ways. If you have a complex topology where you have many different remote sites that all need to, like you would historically, you would have made some kind of site-to-site VPN topology, but now there are better zero trust tools for doing that, for connecting things in exactly the same, exactly the way they need to be connected at a higher network layer. And only for the specific users that are connecting, and only with the permissions for that user. So for those kind of topologies, I think you would still use NetBird or Tailscale or Headscale.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you very much, Steven, for your time. It was a real pleasure to speak with you. And also, if you can mention where can people find the Mistborn project, or how they can get in touch with you or contribute to the project.
Absolutely, thank you. So the main portal, well, so the company that now backs Mistborn is called Stormblessed. Any Brandon Sanderson fans will appreciate that. So stormblessed.com, and it's not Kaladin Stormblessed. It's Storm BLEST. So blessed with a T. And there's also a link on stormblessed.com to the Mistborn repository. The Mistborn repository hasn't changed since it was first published. So that's at GitLab/cyber5k/Mistborn. It was in the chat here. Stormblessed also exists on LinkedIn right now. And we are exploring some background platforms to use to build up the community. And historically, I've used a Discord server for that kind of thing. We've also got some other things that could be running in Kubernetes, Rocket Chat based. So we're exploring that. But to keep up with where it is, the latest links for the website and the other ways in which you can link to the community or support the project immediately right now, or in the future, will always be at that gitlab.com/cyber5k/Mistborn, the home repository for Mistborn. It will always be in there in the documentation.
All right, Steven. So, yeah, thank you very much. I will also include all the links in the description, so anyone can join, check the links, etc., or get in touch with you. And yeah, it was a real pleasure of talking to you, Steven, and I really can't wait what the future brings as Webnestify can also support Mistborn deployments and projects as MSP.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you are welcome, and yeah, talk to you later.
All right.
Okay, bye bye. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching and joining this great, amazing session with Steven. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave questions also in comments. I'll be more than happy to answer. Visit the Stormblast project, try Mistborn yourself, and you will see that it's really great, amazing piece of software that started as a way to protect the family. And now this project is getting traction on the internet as it can secure many, many networks, many computers or companies. So that's it for this live stream. Thank you very much for the questions and engagement. That's really great to see. And next live stream will be about Enhance and the future of web hosting, web panels, etc. So it will be really great session where you can ask Adam, founder of Enhance, any questions. So thank you very much. Stay tuned and hit the like button. Bye bye.